Warning. The following scenes may contain references to power pages and portals which some listeners may find disturbing, especially if you've struggled with poor training in the past. Hey all, Franco Musso here. Yes, I've hacked your podcast feed. I've held John and Mike hostage, but don't worry, I got my wires crossed and I'm actually paying them a small ransom in the form of sponsorship. Go figure. So, by popular demand, I'm cooking up 2 brand new offerings to help you get your portal projects off the ground in 2024. The first is my group coaching program launching in March. Join me and a cohort of other budding portal makers for live coaching sessions, weekly live training, office hours, Q&A, and surgeries. I'll guide you through the process from zero to launch, all at a fraction of the cost of hiring a freelancer or a contractor. It's like having a trusted partner on hand, helping you avoid the pitfalls, saving you a ton of money, headache, and time. Plus, you're bound to learn lots from others in the group as we discuss their experiences, challenges, and solutions. To apply, head on over to francomusso.com/group-coaching. You can now take your fingers out of your ears and enjoy the awesome that is Sprint Zero.
Hello everyone and welcome to episode 7 of the Sprint Zero podcast. My name is John Russell and I'm here with my co-partner crab in crime, Mike Gowland. Hello Mike.
Hi John.
Alright, how you doing? You good?
Yeah, I'm okay, just very tired. How are you?
Yeah, I'm alright, I'm not too bad. We are also joined by Nati Turtledove, an absolute powerhouse in the Power Platform community. Nati's recently moved over from his native South Africa to join CarePoint 365 as a solutions architect here in the UK. He believes that behind every process there are hidden solutions waiting to be designed, analysed and visualised. As his LinkedIn bio states, he is a Power Platform evangelist trying to make a difference. Welcome to the Sprint Zero podcast, Nati. How are you? You okay?
Yeah, all good. Thank you so much for having me. Good to be here.
No, thank you for coming on to the show. So, Nati, what was your journey into this space anyway? So, where did it all start for you?
Okay, that's a long discussion. I'll try to summarize it as quickly as I can.
We've got time.
It started a couple of years ago, close up to 7 years ago. I started as a warehouse packer. I was unpacking boxes of trucks and putting them onto shelves, and I somehow made myself into the IT team at that company. And with Office 365, I was exploring Word online, Excel online, and I came across Power BI, and that was my entrance into the Power Platform. Started building data sets in Excel, moved over to direct query through SQL, realized you can build fantastic SQL queries, brought them into my models in Power BI reports, published them to the company. And that's when I came across Power Platform. Power BI was the one piece. Next was Power Apps, how to actually transact all that data. And using Power Apps, Sage, SQL, it's just been a journey since then up until now, just building data models, building solutions, and as John said, just creating processes based on what's available to us.
Nice. So
that's the short version.
Do you think, thank you very much, do you think the relevance and importance of data has become stronger in your career as you've kind of progressed? Or do you see like a kind of change in that kind of mindset from a client perspective?
I think it's progressed to fortune, and it's very necessary if you're starting to build solutions, not just applications, in the long run. Data modeling, understanding database infrastructure and schemas and how to create relationships is imperative for best solution design and data modeling. So it definitely gave me a leg up to where I am now, fortunately.
Yeah, nice. And so where you are now, you're a solutions architect at CarePoint 365. How's the move gone, and how are you settling into this lovely weather? I mean, I don't know why you've left South Africa. I mean, I don't really understand, but I can see you're wearing some kind of coat on at some point, I think. So yeah, how is the acclimatizing to this beautiful island going?
It's been an interesting move, but a good one. I don't usually tell people this up until I've been asked, but I didn't just move from South Africa. I moved from Cape Town. I was a 5-minute walk from this beautiful beach. So we gave up this beautiful promenade and great sunsets for cold, rainy Manchester. But fortunately, my wife moved from South Africa, from Manchester to South Africa 4 years ago when we got married, and we gave it a shot. We lived within South African issues: no power, no water, and the ticket that made us move. We were driving on the promenade one day, and I said to my wife, "I really want cinnamon buns, and if I don't get my cinnamon buns, I'm going to lose it." And it was 15 minutes until the power was going to be cut out. So, kind of long story short, I didn't get my cinnamon buns, and 2 months later, we're sitting in Manchester.
Wow.
But it's definitely been a journey. It's not great looking out the window seeing the rain, but it's nice having some stability. And I think one of the biggest reasons I moved here was for the community itself. The community, especially within the Power Platform, has embraced me with open arms, and I think being able to be a part of it now in person is worthwhile the experience of just being here. So I'm really excited to what this brings in the future.
Yeah, and I mean, I do, obviously I read the intro, but, you are a solid guy in the Power Platform community. You're mentioned regularly between loads of different people. Your blog is very, very good. I know you also did some, I think Craig White did like a kind of, there was like a use case thing that you did, I think, a while back, and he raves about that. So well done, mate. I think you're doing great.
Really appreciate that. It's nice to hear that. It's not always easy to believe it.
On that subject, imposter syndrome's come up quite a lot on this podcast. I just wanted to get your take on it. How do you deal with it, and what support do you have when it rears its head? And do you have imposter syndrome?
100%. I do not deal with it well at all. John, you actually posted the other day what symptoms comes with ADHD, and part of my imposter syndrome kind of links up with that. Is I've got a really, really low self-esteem, and in order to prove myself, I go into these hyper-focus sessions. I get high-functioning anxiety to deliver, and I don't sleep at night as well over it. But I think my biggest support for imposter syndrome is my wife, saying that I am able to do it, and I wouldn't be here if I weren't. It's that switch in your mind that you need to flick to believe it, and it's not easy. There's going to be hurdles to get over it, and things happen in the day in the work life where you constantly question yourself if you are good enough, or if you're worthwhile even listening to. You just said I'm quoting a powerhouse in the community. I don't believe that, and it's something I don't feel yet. One day I'd like to be there. I'd look up to people like yourselves as the powerhouses of the community. And
really, well, that's how I feel about you. So that's how I feel about you. So it's vice versa.
But I think it's a good thing, imposter syndrome, in a way, is if you start to believe that you are good at it, and you become haughty over it, it leads you down a really dangerous road, because the whole idea of growing and learning is being able to engage with others and learn from others. And if you're not willing to do that because you think you are the best, then it's a dark hole from there onwards.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like it's that we all do this because we love to learn, right? And we love to get better. And I don't think you can be. It's definitely a Power Platform. You can't know everything.
Not at all.
Sure.
No, not at all.
You can't be the Power Apps and Power Automate and Power BI and Power Copilot Studio expert, and then understand everything about Azure services that you might need to integrate to, and then know everything about Entra, and then know everything about Microsoft 365 and Graph. Like, it's not going to happen. It's huge. So you have to find your niches in this space, I find.
Yeah.
You can be great at your niche, but you still need to stay curious.
So I think a really good analogy for being a Power Platform consultant, in my view, is like a pub landlord.
Yeah.
So a pub landlord knows quite a bit about most of the drinks he sells. He knows a little bit about the food. He probably doesn't know how to cook it. He knows the clients well, which is important. But he might have a speciality in, like, the ales that are on tap today, and he's gone to the brewery and he kind of knows what those ales are, and he can really, really recite everything that he needs to. And I think that's the way that I see that I see myself as a consultant. And I think, like Mike says, if you're going to get yourself into all kinds of trouble if you're trying to spread yourself entirely over the platform. That's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I think the other side to it as well is growing with it. So, for instance, the blogs that I'm doing now on security, it's not my niche. I don't know it so well, but the reason why I'm blogging about it and why I've got imposter syndrome over it is because in order to write about it, I'm learning at the same time. I'm trying to figure out best practice. I'm trying to figure out the best way to build security models in the Power Platform. So it's not just imposter syndrome, but it's also a learning curve. It's helping me grow in that niche now.
Yeah.
And
it's important to have that foundational knowledge about those different parts of the platform as well. And John, your pub analogy is spot on, isn't it? Because as the pub landlord, you may specialize in the ales, but then you surround yourself with a head chef, right, who specializes in the food, and you surround yourself with a cocktail waitress. Sommelier. Yeah, so you have that, and then they specialize in making cocktails, right? So it's also surrounding yourself with a good team.
Yeah, surrounding yourself with a good team, and also knowing when to go to them to ask for help.
Yeah,
and that's something that like Mike to me is my go-to guy when I'm struggling with something. Like, Mike is very good technically. He just knows everything as well. I mean, he doesn't know everything, but he seems to know everything to me, or the bits that I miss, the bits that I struggle with. So, for example, I am rubbish at maths. I am no good at maths whatsoever, whereas Mike is pretty switched on when it comes to maths. So I know that I can probably go to Mike and say, right, I need to kind of work this out. And it's the way he explains things. He explains things in a slightly different way that seems to work, and that's why we get on.
Sorry, I can just cut that out of the episode. It's fine.
Oh, come on.
It's so funny you say that, because literally half an hour before we jumped onto this conversation, I was having this exact talk with some of my colleagues at work. It's easier to contact one of the peer developers within an hour of having an issue than to spend 7 hours trying to figure it out yourself. Because if you haven't got that ego and you're willing to learn with others and actually collaborate and work with others, you'll find yourself in a much better position. And I believe it branches further than just colleagues at work. I think it branches to the community. I've got no problem reaching out to fellow community members, asking them for their input on something I've killed my brain over.
Yeah. It's like today, actually, exactly today. I had a bit of like kind of slower time today, and I don't really know enough about Power Pages. I don't really understand the relationships between the web roles and the table permissions and stuff. So I reached out to Franco, name drop, you'll realise later, and Franco Musso in the community, who is specialises in Power Pages, and he kind of just talked me through it. And that's all I needed. I just needed someone to kind of talk me through it. And I'm much more of a communicator than I am going on learn and reading about it. It just won't, which is quite opposite to, I think, what Mike is. Mike, you're not such a visual learner, right? Like, you hate video content, right?
I don't hate video content. It's a bit strong.
Oh, okay, all right. Oh.
I just don't find I learn from it as well as I do reading.
Yeah,
or talking.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned security, Natty, and I know you've done you've written lots about security in your blog on Dataverse. Do you think it is the number one issue when you're triaging UAT issues?
I think the number one issue is dependent on what you're building.
Okay.
It can definitely be a massive issue, especially when you're dealing with security roles or RBAC models with record ownership and record assignment business units. It can be a massive issue, but I think it's also very dependent on what you are UATing. If you're UATing a basic, simple app and you've got change requests coming in instead of bugs, that's triaging to make sure you've got enhancements in the sprint versus bugs in the sprint and prioritizing. Whereas with security, you've got sample data that a customer is expecting, and if you've got processes in place with business units and security roles to do record assignment and record ownership, there needs to be an understanding that importing data as a service user or something like that, you're not going to have that data protection, and therefore you might have some issues in UAT from a security level. It's having that understanding that you also need to build up your own data to test it properly. It can't just be fed on a plate to you in certain ways. I might get shocked for saying this if we've got certain listeners, but I'm saying it anyway based on experience.
No, I mean I'm totally with you on the data side of it. And so when you have kind of more complex UAT security issues, in your experience, what do you think could have been put in place at the beginning of the project to mitigate those security issues? Is there anything that you can think of off the top of your head, like best practice that, should have been done that is maybe similar in different projects that you've worked on where you've had similar issues?
I'd like to change the word experience from past to present, because I'm still experiencing it.
Okay, yeah.
I'd say that the best way forward is documentation and documenting the processes as to where that data eventually lives. So when you go into UAT, you know how to UAT properly. You're not expecting the data to move as you want it to move. It needs to comply with what those security models say. And that, if you've got that documented correctly, you can help UAT users understand from a technical level what they need to test to accomplish that data layer. Whereas if they're going in blindly, they're just going to expect an outcome and not understand where the data is actually going to. So documentation is one, and I think building up your security data model from an early stage, planning it into your data models. If you're building up an ERD at the beginning of a project, having in mind there your relationships, your security model on top of that. If you're assigning security roles with business unit read levels or org read levels, understanding if you've got lookups, what tables you need to reference to actually see as well. If you've got column level security, it's planning that ahead and having oversight on how it fits into the broader data model. So documentation. Every developer's nightmare.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. Get your data model right. Get your security roles right. The app builds itself.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Especially if it's model driven.
Oh yeah. Well, especially Canvas as well, John. I mean, if you have a gallery that's putting in items and you want the user to see the items that they own or have access to, you don't need to do any additional filtering if you've got the security role set up. You just put your items. It makes your Canvas apps easier. It makes your model-driven apps easier. Makes everything so much easier if you just build down from the start. So I completely agree with that.
No, 100%. It definitely becomes an eye-opener if you understand what you're building and you've, as you said, got that data model structured from the beginning.
So, Nati, we have this section called Uncomfortable Corner.
I was warned.
Uncomfortable Corner.
How does it make me jump every single time? Such a voice.
So, Nati, when was the last time you felt uncomfortable in or out of work? Explain how you felt, how you managed to get through it, and what did you learn? Did you learn anything about yourself, your skills, your emotions? And what would you do differently or the same if you're in a similar position next time?
I honestly feel uncomfortable most days in public interaction. Being a part of a development team, being on a session like this, even speaking in public. I'm a massive introvert, even though I kind of put a persona that I'm not. But I think it comes from my low self-esteem that makes me very uncomfortable in situations and worry that I'm going to say the wrong thing. And it tends to happen a lot. And the way I work, when I say something incorrect or I make a fool of myself, it's something that lingers in my mind for forever. I look back into childhood traumas that linger in my head, and I wish I could go back and do things differently. Those interactions are the uncomfortable moments for me. Even if I say something wrong on this call, it's just going to run in my mind for decades to come. I wish I didn't say that. Maybe Mike could have cut it out if I had asked him to. Those type of thoughts will haunt me. But I think the biggest support I have is my wife, trying to enable me and say these things happen. Life happens, and I'm going to drop an S-bomb here because you can bleep it out. Shit happens.
Yeah.
Get over it. You grow from it. You learn from it. And I think if you plan on how you're going to overcome it and put yourself out there, such as write content, come into a session and try to overcome those fears. It does start to build up those moments where you feel less uncomfortable and you grow from it.
Note to self, bleep shit out.
I was told I could drop one word.
Yeah.
All good.
All good.
John Levesque had about 10, didn't he?
Yeah, John Levesque doesn't mind the old. So I a lot of that resonates with me. I think I'm lucky in most of the time when I'm doing presenting stuff, it seems to be about stuff that I'm really passionate about, and that what I've found is that there's a fine line between adrenaline and anxiety, and your body does, unless you do it a lot, which I haven't done a lot yet, but in person kind of speaking, unless you've done it quite a few times, it takes quite a while for your body to understand the difference between anxiety and adrenaline. And so
fight or flight.
Yes, basically. But yeah, I think that a big thing for me recently has been my realization about my ADHD, and that's been a bit, especially this week, that's been quite tricky. So yeah, I understand where you're coming from. The self-esteem thing, I think, that's a harder one to solve. But I think what you say about your wife, I mean, that's my wife's is exactly the same. She's my rock basically, and will always she can spot things a mile away from me that I don't even know that I've actually got a problem with or something's happening, and she'll be like, well, what's going on? It's just it's interesting.
I don't see you didn't mention me there, John.
What's that, mate?
I don't see you didn't mention me there.
Oh, sorry, Mike. Yeah, okay, you.
It's funny about the about saying the wrong thing, right? Because I had a situation last week where I had to give a presentation on a slide deck I didn't create.
Yeah, interesting.
And I was very anxious about delivering that on the lead up. So it was actually something we did at the ANS offices, and I thought to myself, I need to take some time and actually rehearse this, and I need to like have a script for each slide that I need to rehearse, and then I'll be able to deliver it on the day. Typically it got to the night before, and I was there. Came up with this script. I was reading it, and deep down, I thought to myself, "This isn't me. These aren't my words. These are words that I've put to a slide, but they're not mine. This isn't who I am." And actually reached out to Mr. Huntingford for some advice, and the advice he gave me was tell stories. Like you've experienced this. Tell stories, and then you don't need a script, right?
Yeah.
And that went from me potentially delivering this really robotic speech, or introduction, whatever it was, and John was there, so he can vouch for it. Probably one of my best public speaking moments.
Yeah, I would say it was your best
without doing any rehearsal, and that opened my eyes a little bit to that sort of like confidence in speaking. I'd say
it's because you know the subject matter, because the subject matter is you. That's it. And although I would say there probably are some people that think, "Well, that's a bit selfish." It's not, because that's the way to win over. That's the way to win over a crowd, right? You tell something that is relatable, that you're passionate about, and you convey it, and that's exactly what you did. You nailed it on all three of those that day. And
this isn't about me. This is about Natty.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm getting bombshells of insights dropped onto me. The one that's still resonating with me, John, is what you just said now. There's two instincts. There's adrenaline and there's anxiety. That one just hit me hard now. Is how do you differentiate between the two of those? How do you start to set your mind to kind of divide them up and know when you are anxious at presenting or when you're just in the moment and you're excited and you've got this rush coming through you?
So a tip for that is that if it's anxiety, I go very quiet and I don't say anything. If it's adrenaline, I will be chatting to a window. Like I'll just talk to anyone that wants to talk to me. So that's the main, for me, that's the main thing that I noticed the difference in. Yeah, I don't know if that's that you can relate to that maybe.
Yeah, I fiddle when I'm anxious. I'm busy fiddling now.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't anxious, but I'm always fiddling with a pen or something. Yeah.
And I think it's important to remember as well. And I can't remember who told me this. It may have been Chris, but I'm sure I've heard it elsewhere as well. Is that feeling nervous before delivering a session, as an example, is the most natural feeling in the world. And actually, if you don't feel that,
yeah,
you may not even be human necessarily.
Yeah, and that goes back to your point, Natty, about being complacent in the fact, being complacent that you know everything. I would suggest anyone that isn't nervous before going on talking about something is doing something that they probably know very, very well, very, very well, and they need to push themselves and do something else. Or they are, just complacent in what they're doing, and probably need to be challenged.
Yeah, probably.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm still resonating on that adrenaline, Bob. I'm sorry, my mind's gone to another place now. My ADHD mind.
Talk about it. Yeah. Let's talk about it.
It's hit me hard as I'm thinking back to all the times I've presented, trying to feel like just remember how I felt at those moments. Is it adrenaline? Because if I start to wrap my head around that, it helps a fortune, as you say. You become more excited than worried about these things.
Yeah,
it's really
that's
hit
the
me
other
hard.
thing. That's the other thing that Lewis said Lewis Babbitt said on, I think it was on a Power Platform call. He said there's always going to be one person in the room who doesn't know what you're talking about and who is going to learn something. Always.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. That's been a big thing for me that I've thought about a lot.
Same.
Because sometimes, like for instance, the AI stuff that me and Mike have been doing, like I kind of understand it. And for me, it's been maybe not so much the technical side, albeit, but the actual kind of understanding of what large language models do and stuff like that. I found that quite easy to understand. And then I kind of like compare myself to other people and think, well, if that's easy for me to understand it, why do you struggle to understand it? And it's me being a bit hard on myself, really, I think.
Yeah. But I've heard that saying as well. I think I've heard it from Lewis, where someone in the crowd is going to at least learn something. And the same thing goes with blog posting: is you can write on the same topic that someone else has written, but you may have a different way of interpreting it or explaining it. But in my head, that's where imposter syndrome comes in. I may say it differently, or someone may learn from it, but what I'm saying, is it correct? Is it right? Maybe I'm destroying their journey now and I'm leading them down the wrong path. That's where those moments of anxiety come in as well for me.
But then that's okay. That's okay. Like I remember I did a huge blog post about the entity set name on tables and how you have to do that, how you used to have to do that API call to get the plural name and all that stuff. I did all that, and then someone commented, "You do realise you can press tools and go copy set name." And I was like, "Oh man!" Spent like an hour and a half writing that blog post, and and I thought, well, do I just get rid of that blog post? No, I'm just going to leave it there. And I got pointed out that that's a quicker way to do it. So it's not wrong. It's just a quick way to do it.
But to turn that around, John, is that somebody added a correction to your article, and it's still somebody's going to learn from that, right? Because they've seen how you do it. They've seen how it can be done. And that's
Forget about the correction. I literally used your blog 2 weeks ago for exactly that, and I only realized again afterwards the tool options. I was using the API call to find the schema set name for lookups, and then I realized, wait a second, you can do this through tools.
Okay, John, maybe it's time to retire that post.
No, fantastic. It helped me through hours of lookup issues.
So this is the other way I look at blog posts as well, Natty. Is I don't really look at the numbers. I write blog posts because I forget things, so I constantly forget stuff. Mike will vouch for that. If I don't write it down, I'm nine times out of 10, I'm going, Mike, you remember when we did this? Because I've forgotten. So what I do is, if it's something that I really need to know, I will write it down and then I'll write a blog post about it. And it's really for me to be able to go back and, remember and see it step by step, because that's how my brain works. Yeah.
And it's the same. The way me and John compliment each other is I'm terrible with dates. Like, I literally do not know what's happening the next week, but I'll ask John, and then 5 seconds later, I get a Power Automate email come through. These are our guests for this week. Oh yeah,
You're a real proper powerhouse duo.
Yeah,
It's like you don't get John without Mike, or vice versa.
I know. They getting married in the same venue was pretty strange. That was an odd moment. Not the same day. Although our wives would wonder that.
We also have very similar cats as well.
Yeah.
Are you cat people?
Yeah.
No, I'm not really a cat person. I want to be a dog person.
Oh, you're a dog person? Oh, okay. Well, that's all we've got time for this episode.
We can end it there.
Natty, what's your dog called?
My dog was called Blue. She was a husky. It's a sensitive topic. We tried our best to bring her over from South Africa to England. We spent 6 months of planning to try and get her over here, but there's 4 months worth of quarantine rules, and we're talking about $5,000 barely in costs to bring her over. And we couldn't find a place to rent that was pet friendly for a good 6 months as well. So we had to find her a good home. It's a really hard thing to swallow because people judge you for that, giving up an animal, and you just want the best life for them.
Yeah,
dude. Yeah, I think that's unfair. The judging thing. That's not on. You don't need those people in your life. You heard it here first. That's what you've got to do. You've got to do what you've got to do. That's what it's about.
One.
So
it's
a rough one though. Yeah.
But yeah, she's in good hands. She's living a happy life, and she's still living by the beach. That's one step better than me.
I'm not laughing at the situation. I'm laughing because all I can hear in the background is John's cat just
is that
going.
You can hear that.
Yeah.
Go away. No,
I'm not
go away.
anti-cats.
Go away.
I just prefer dogs.
Yeah, it's because I said I prefer dogs.
Yeah.
He knows. He's now giving me grief.
Well, one day when I convince my wife, we'll get another pet. We'll settle down first. I'm trying to get her to let me get a turtle.
It's got to be done. And a dove.
Yeah, I used to have a pet turtle. I used to have a massive 4-foot fish tank in my room with this terrapin that used to swim up and down. And yeah, she wasn't a fan when we got married. If she ever listens to the sorry, darling, I'm throwing you under the bus. But I don't blame you. They're not clean.
Brilliant.
So no. I think that's all we got time for this episode. Natty, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. It's a really good conversation. You can find Nati Turtledove on LinkedIn, X, and his website, nati-turtledove.com. Links to resources mentioned in this episode will be in the show notes. Music today was provided by Ken Likefear. You can find his music on Spotify, the link to which you can find in this episode's show notes. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss the next episode. We would also really appreciate it if you gave us a follow on LinkedIn, and if you're enjoying the podcast, please give us a review on your chosen podcast platform. Please, it helps keep the lights on. This has been Sprint Zero, and we've been John Russell. Say goodbye, John.
Bye.
Nati Turtledove. Say goodbye, Natty.
Goodbye.
And I've been Mike Gowland. See you in the next episode.
Bye. Love you, Mike. Love
you, John. Bye.
Bye.
Ooh, just don't follow me on Twitter or on X. I don't use it anymore.
Oh, okay. He's on LinkedIn, not X, and his website, nati-turtledove.com.
I just deleted X the other day.
Okay, he's deleted X the other day, which is probably going to be like 3 weeks ago when this goes out.
Take that, Elon Musk.
Bye.
Bye.
Warning. The following scenes may contain references to power pages and portals which some listeners may find disturbing. Especially if you've struggled with poor training in the past. Hey all, Franco Mosso here again. Quick update on that hostage situation. Hopefully the smell isn't coming across the airwaves. I haven't let the guys use the bathroom yet, so the joke's definitely on me. Anyway, big announcement. I'm finally releasing my online Power Pages course. This has been 5 years in the making. It's tried and tested on citizen devs and portal makers all around the world. It's the course I wish existed when I was getting started. It's practical, it's hands-on, and it's project-based, so you're not wondering how the heck this would apply to the real world. I've built in battle-tested lessons I've learned from tens of successful portal projects across various industries, budgets and geographies, and I've formulated the most efficient route from zero to heroic launch. The tools and techniques I've chosen to show you are all based on what adds the most value to you, the learner, and to your customers, all in the most compressed timeline possible. Think 80-20, focusing on the techniques that punch above their weight and deliver the majority of results. You'll get video lessons, a repeatable framework, and some super helpful worksheets. Visit francomosso.com/power-pages-course and register your interest. Disclaimer, this course isn't for you if you prefer hours of slides, theory, and little to no action. You can now take your fingers out of your ears and enjoy the awesome that is Sprint Zero.